Book 4, Falcon in the Barn, Chapter 36. I intend for this to be the most enlightening day of my life. The next morning, Mari sat on the front steps and gazed at her patch of rocky gray ground, wondering when the first blades of whatever might come up, and if she'd be there to see them fully ripen, or bloom, or whatever they would do. Actually, she was wondering if anything could replace in her mind the fantastical idea of leaving the world. There was no real reason not to go. If they left, surely Edge would warm back up to Jatesy and Deck again, and everything would return to normal. Even Shem could benefit by moving into their home. And should he be threatened with a transfer, which seemed inevitable as long as Thorne was in charge, he'd already have a place to live. He could resign just like Perrin, then start building houses. Jatesy and Deck would be fine as long as they still had their Uncle Shem. Then Perrin, Mari, and Pato would eventually return, and they could start all over again. That is, after they delivered the news of the unpoisoned cursed lands, which would shake the world, and then everyone could start all over again, even in Terrap's western lands if they wanted. Even as Mari stared at the ground, she wasn't saying it, but was going over the wall and envisioning forests, deserts, stone buildings that were broader and taller than anything in Idumea, and stacked like pyramids stepping upwards. There were 3 of those on the map. Temples, Terrap had called them. What temples were, Mari had no idea, but desperately wanted to find out. And what lay beyond? Perrin suspected the expedition didn't even make it to the ruins before they turned back. He guessed they camped on the edge of the desert most of the time, creating the new reality of their origins that they presented to the world. But Perrin and Pato would find a route, with Mari in tow. She shook her head and tried to focus on her meager garden. Listen to me, she thought. I'm already on the trail Perrin has yet to cut. They hadn't told Pato yet, nor Jatesy and Deckett. Perrin and Mari decided to keep the idea to themselves until the baby was born and all seemed well. How they could keep their plans quiet until then, Mari could hardly imagine. But it was her pledge to her husband, test me, and you'll see that I can keep something to myself for once. She did owe it to him, after all. She grinned at her tiny yard without noticing a cluster of women watching her from across the road, trying to figure out why Mrs. Shin was beaming at raked soil. Before Mari could wonder what exactly saddle sores were, she heard Pato shouting from the back garden as he ran to the front. "Mother, Jatesy says the pains are coming every 10 minutes. Mari leaped to her feet. "Oh, it's too soon." As she ran to the house, she heard Pato call after her, "You don't have to rush. A representative is already there, and she said she can help." Mari froze when she heard that news. "Oh, no, she won't." She ran to Jatesy's old room and snatched the birthing bag that sat next to the new cradle. "Stupid administrative retraining," she grumbled as she hastily checked the bag left for her by the only midwife in Edge Mari felt they could trust. "The first woman willing to talk to us, and they send her to Idumea for the week. As if a woman in her 50s, an experience with dozens of deliveries, needs retraining by the government. Oh, dear Creator, she better not be listening to them, and she better come back quick." As Mari rushed with Pato back up to the Briders, she remembered her first meeting with Mrs. Braxhicks last week. "Mrs. Shin, I'm so glad to see you here," Mrs. Braxhicks had said when Mari came into the Briders' kitchen. "I was hoping you'd come by since I can't come to you." She shook her head in annoyance. "Stupid regulations. I need to tell you, as I've already told your daughter, I have to leave for 2 weeks for Idumea." "Why?" Mari had asked. "Ridiculous administrative nonsense," she blustered. "I'm sorry to put it that way, but if anyone would agree with me, it'd be you, right?" Mari looked hard at the woman. "What color is the sky?" Mrs. Braxhicks immediately glanced out the window. Gray and white, storms coming. Be clearer by tomorrow, though. Mari grinned in approval. There were still a few thinking women in the world. You see, even though I've been delivering babies for over 30 years, I'm not qualified. To continue practicing, I need to be retrained by the Office of Family. They even issued a handbook. Mrs. Braxhicks scoffed in disgust. Ugh, under the heading, How to Handle a Breech Birth, they have one sentence, then a full paragraph on how to comfort the grieving husband and father after the deaths. Why, Mr. Brighter could do better than that. And I'm telling you now, should Jatesy start her pains before I return, do not let the Office of Family Representative in this house. Mrs. Shin, you and Mr. Brighter can handle this. Jatesy and Mari had both burst out laughing at that. I'll do my best, Mari said. But Decet? I don't know where you've been delivering babies for 30 years, but around here, men don't do anything but pace the fields out of earshot. In some villages, the fathers are just as involved with the delivery as the mother, Mrs. Braxhicks said soberly. They're responsible for getting it in there. They better assist in getting it out. That elicited another round of laughter, and even the midwife broke into a smile. I didn't mean to put it that coarsely, but Mr. Brighter has more experience with birthing than most of the new representatives. Just tell him it's natural for a baby to come out head first, and there's no need for him to bury his arm in anything. That afternoon last week, Mari and Jatesy received a fast lesson in how to birth babies. When they told Dick of the midwife's recommendations, he went gray. Then I'll pray to the Creator that nothing happens in the next few weeks. He walked outside and sat under a tree with his head between his knees. I guess he didn't pray hard enough, Mari thought as she bounded up through Jatesy's door. Up here, Mother, Jatesy's voice called down to her. You're on your own, said Pato as he quickly made his exit. Mari ran up the stairs to Jatesy's bedroom, where she was resting, so to speak, on the bed. A representative in a crisp white uniform, white, Mari thought incredulously, and a bag of her own sat waiting on a chair. Her hair was tidied into a neat bun, and gloves were on her hands. What was she planning to do in such an absurd outfit? White, of all colors. Mari glared at her, worried that the girl had even less experience with birthing than Mari. And what have you done to my daughter? She turned to Jatesy. And why are you in bed? Where's the bale of straw? She shoved it out and told me I belong up here, Jatesy said angrily, pointing to the young woman. But birthing in your bed will ruin it, Mari exclaimed. I know. They both looked accusingly at the administrator's representative. The young woman paled even more than her silly uniform and seemed stunned to be on inspection. If she's lying down, it's easier for me to deliver the baby. Jatesy blinked. Why should I accommodate you? It's my baby, and I'm doing all the work. Aren't you supposed to be serving me? The girl furrowed her brows, clearly never having considered that before. Her eyes began to dart back and forth, as if reading an invisible text, searching for the script she had carefully memorized to become a well-trained administrative servant. Finally she found it and looked at Mari. Good morning, ma'am. I'm Miss Guiding. Mari nearly snorted. You certainly are. Jatesy guffawed, but it sounded more like a cough of pain than derision. The poor girl's brows furrowed further, but she kept to her script. And you are irritated that you're here without permission, Mari snapped. And you know full well who I am. Everyone does. Miss Guiding batted her eyelashes and stood up. Now, there's no need to worry. I don't charge anything. I'm here as a service from the administrators, she said as if she really believed it. I come to bring help and comfort. Mother, she hasn't done anything to me, Jatesy assured her. I won't let her. I wanted to wait for you before I listened to what she has to say. Jatesie's eyes closed and she began to breathe deeply. "Oh, that looks like the real thing," Mari fretted. "So you're trying the breathing first? Roll to your side, remember?" Obediently, Jatsie rolled over and breathed rhythmically until the pain subsided. "You could try the crooning, too, get in that practice." "She doesn't have to do that, you know," the representative said. "We found that many women prefer to remain on their backs." Mari stared at Miss Guiding and said, "Jatsie, did it feel better on your side or on your back?" "The pain is in my back. Why put more pressure on it?" "Our midwife," Mari said pointedly, "who's been sent away for 2 weeks, taught us many ways to ease the discomfort of laboring." Her eyes burned holes in the woman's white uniform. "So tell me, Miss Guiding, how long are women in this new regime supposed to lie on their backs?" The representative looked confused. For a moment, Mari almost had compassion for this young woman, barely older than her daughter. "For the entire time, madam." Mari's eyebrows flew upwards. "Tell me now, how is that position supposed to help her deliver the baby?" "Her body does it for her." Miss Guiding looked perplexed. "And so she just, takes a nap?" Mari prodded. "Yes, actually she does." Jatsie sat up quickly as she could. "How's that possible?" The representative rummaged in her bag and produced a dark bottle. "With this. Truly, you haven't heard of sedation?" Mari's mouth opened, shut, and opened again like a gaping fish. She looked at Jatsie, then back to the representative. "Oh, we know all about sedation," she said tonelessly. "Then you know that this is a real wonder. The mother sniffs it, and she falls asleep almost instantly." Miss Guiding beamed as if it were her own invention. "She's in a deep sleep for hours. If she wakes before the baby is delivered, we just give her more. Within a day, occasionally 2, the baby emerges and the mother has experienced nothing." Mari looked at her daughter. Jatsie answered with surprising calm. "To sleep through the pain of what's to come does sound appealing." She shifted in her bed to find a comfortable position but failed. "But there are ways to deal with the pain, and I do not want to miss a moment of bringing my baby into the world." "But it's completely safe. It's been in use for almost a year." Mari covered her mouth to keep herself from exclaiming, "In use for almost a year? Ha!" Jatsie's eyes flared in fury. "I will not be sedated. I don't want to sleep away the first moment of my child's life." "But it can be frightening." Miss Guiding leaned on her bed in earnestness. "Why would you want to experience fear? And it is a bit dull, frankly, because it can take hours or even days. You don't want to have to subject yourself to fear and boredom." "Fear and boredom?" Mari asked. "There's an unusual combination I think I'd like to see. But, dear representative of the administrators," the unfortunate girl failed to notice Mari's scorn, "fear comes only when you don't have faith in the outcome. And boredom comes when you believe there's nothing new worth learning. I simply can't understand how any of that will occur today." Jatsie sat up, kneeled, then fell forward onto her hands in a dog-like position that alarmed the representative. "Should you be doing that?" she asked. "Absolutely," said Jatsie, "because it relieves the pressure on my back." She began crooning like a tone-deaf cow trying to sing. Miss Guiding stared at her. "Why is she making that noise?" Mari raised her eyebrows. "Just how many birthings have you witnessed?" The girl pursed her lips. "You mean without the sedation?" Mari nodded. Guiding just gulped. Jatsie stopped the mooing as the pain subsided. "An old midwife told me how to work through the pains. There's a variety of sounds, breathings, positions, movements, different techniques for different women. We're not identical, you know. Oh, wait, Maybe you don't. Since this is an old way of doing things, at least from 1 year ago, I'm sure you have no idea what I'm doing. But we do. Of all the traits to develop, sarcasm seemed to be the newest one to reveal itself in Jatesy. When Mari was a young teacher, she thought sarcasm was the sign of true wit. But as she aged, she realized that sarcasm was just lazy and more damaging than enlightening. Then again, there were occasions like this, when sarcasm kept someone from exhibiting true violence. Mari tried not to smile. I thank you for coming, Jatesy said with finality, and I send you on your way. You don't need to make any more routine checks on me. She cringed in discomfort and began to sway her hips like a dog trying to dance. Miss Guiding's lips peeled back in dismay. You just don't have to do this. What good can come from suffering? Jatesy continued her swaying. Who said I was suffering? I intend for this to be the most enlightening day of my life. Good day. Mari beamed at her daughter. The representative looked at them both, baffled. Send for me if you change your mind. I'll be expecting you. And she left. As they heard her go down the stairs, Mari released a big breath. Ugh, how did she know to come? Jatesy shook her head. I'm not sure, but I have my suspicions. I've been feeling pains for a while. She crawled out of bed and stood nearly erect. That's better. I was in the curing sheds early this morning, pointing out to the forge cook where the ripened cheese was, when a pain hit me. I'm guessing he went back and reported it to Thorne. She cringed, either from saying the name or a twinge or both. The captain probably sent the representative. I can't really imagine why, though. Mari moaned quietly. Oh, maybe Thorne sent someone because he's such a fan of sedation. Still, she said, it's a little troubling. It seems rather compassionate of him towards you. Jatesy, since you've been married, has he ever... Mari didn't know how to put her concern into words. Jatesy looked down at her hands. He still rides by, slowly. I catch him looking at the house sometimes, but he's never done anything outright. Dec keeps an old pitchfork by the back door, just in case. She smiled. Mother, maybe word about him will get back to Shem, and he can... Mari shook her head. We don't know what Shem can do right now. We best not even try to hope. I know, I miss him too. But let's get you moving. See if this is the real thing or not, she said brightly. Pato did this to me quite a bit for many weeks before he was actually ready to come. Oh, Jatesy moaned. Please don't tell me I'm about to give birth to another Pato. And if this baby doesn't come today, then I'll know he'll be as annoying as his uncle. Mari and Jatesy walked around the farm that morning, pausing every 10 minutes for Jatesy to breathe through another pain. Perrin and Pato stopped with their digging a new canal, winced with worry at their direction, then quickly turned back to digging, hoping not to see something they shouldn't. They also visited Dec in the barn while he was in the middle of helping a cow birth a calf. As soon as Mari realized what was happening, she tried to steer Jatesy out of view, but she insisted on staying. I want to see him do it, Mother, so I know he can help me. Mari shook her head and shielded her eyes. The graphic nature of nature wasn't something she naturally dealt with. Dec heard his wife and called over his shoulder, his arm up in something Mari didn't want to understand. Jates, what are you talking about? You taking care of me after that cow. If he could have spun around, he would have. What? No, Jates, don't even... Whoa, easy, easy. Look, Jatesy, I'm a little busy. We'll discuss this later. Mari waited outside, practicing her own deep breathing, until her daughter came out a few minutes later. Well, that wasn't so bad, Jatesy said, holding her belly protectively. No, not so bad, as long as Dec doesn't drop the baby on the straw. By late morning, as Mari and Jatesy walked the perimeter of the farm again, Mari began to suspect this day would not be lightening her daughter at all. The pains didn't come any closer, much to Mari's secret relief. The afternoon was even longer, the pains still 10 minutes apart, and the time passing unbearably slowly for Jatesy. By evening, the pains had subsided completely. It was a good thing that Perrin and Pato had already left for home to make dinner, because Jatesy was disappointed. Intensely, violently, furiously disappointed. "What a useless day!" she bellowed as she sat down at the kitchen table and pounded her fist on it. Mari was making dinner because she didn't think her daughter should be allowed anywhere near sharp knives tonight. Dec, himself exhausted from 3 calvings, trudged up to the back door. When he heard his wife yelling, he paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Wasted this whole day. This child will never come out. I am stuck with this Billy until the last day." Dec glanced at the window and noticed Mari watching him. He sighed and walked into the door. "You!" Jatesy cried when she saw him. "This is all your doing." Dec turned to his mother-in-law, pleading for assistance. Mari shrugged apologetically. He crouched in front of Jatesy. "I'm sorry this has been such a bad day for you," he said sweetly as he took her hands. "But Jates, all things happen for a purpose." His wife rolled her eyes at him. "What do you think?" he cautiously asked Mari. "I'm sorry, Jatesy, but Decet, it's not happening today. And maybe Mrs. Braxhicks was right. She thought the baby still has about 4 more weeks. "No!" Jatesy wailed. "So, no, Dec, we don't need you to reach in and pull it out by its legs tonight." Dec flushed red, but Jatesy sat up. "You could, Dec. You could do it. Just wash off your hands and—" "Jatesy!" Dec cried. "Mari, is she serious?" "It's just that extra mooing, Dec. Don't your cows do that? Complain a bit more?" Jatesy glared at her mother. "Just a few more weeks, you two, I promise. I've been there, and it will end." Perrin walked into the back door with a tired Pato. "All I want is a piece of pie and bed, Father," he said as he took the entire pie from the counter, remembering a fork at the last moment, and headed out to the eating room. "Why people want to be farmers is beyond my comprehension. It never ends. Good night," he called before shutting his bedroom door. "Good night, son," he said, although he was sure Pato was too far away already to hear him. Soon Pato's farming days would be over, and his exploring days would begin. Perrin didn't know how much longer he could keep it from his son, but he enjoyed imagining the look of shock on his face when he'd finally hear about his new future. Perrin lit a candle and headed down to the cellar in search of something for dinner. He'd seen the look in Mari's eyes. The baby wasn't coming tonight. And she'd be home soon, spent and with frayed nerves from having to deal with their very disappointed daughter. The least he could do was bake a few potatoes, which he dug out of the cellar. Reluctantly, he also pulled out a crock of cheese, Pato's first attempt at making it. Well, someone had to be the first to try it. After he put the potatoes in the oven and stoked its fire, he walked the crock of cheese, held out safely at arm's distance, and a candle to the eating table. The crinkling of the hairs on his neck told him something in the shadows by the fireplace wasn't quite right. And he was a man who knew all about the shadows of a dark room. "Reveal yourself," he commanded. "Perrin Shin," a soft, gentle voice said. "I'm here because a friend has sent me." A woman's voice. That unnerved him even more. He slammed down the crock on the table. "Show yourself," he commanded again, holding the candle far in front of him to light whatever was lurking there. The shadow moved from the fireplace and slowly walked to the opposite side of the table. It was definitely a woman, and she was holding up her hands. "Perrin Shin, I am unarmed. You may check me if you need to. I wish only to speak with you." Perrin held up the candle to better see her face and sidled to the end of the table and the drawer that was hidden there. He'd never seen the woman before. She was as slight in build as Mari, with black curly hair and dark earth-brown skin. As she smiled, her eyes were gentle, deceivingly so. But it was her clothing that most alarmed Perrin. It was dyed in a mottled black and brown and loose all around her, convenient for hiding blades. Having reached the secret door, Perrin set down the candle. With his free hand, he subtly felt for the drawer and noiselessly slid it open. "Who are you?" he demanded. "A friend," she said, gingerly approaching the opposite side of the table. "I can't tell you my name right now, but I will later." Perrin felt in the drawer. "How did you get into my house?" His heart sank when he realized the drawer was empty. The woman smiled sweetly. "Our mutual friend helped me in, and Perrin Shin, your knife is not there." That's when Perrin noticed the second shadow by the front door, and it moved. The dim candlelight glinted off the long knife that normally sat in the table's drawer, clenched in the folded arms of a truly massive man. Perrin sized him up. Not only was he taller, he was younger and more muscular. Not good. He was as dark as the woman, but his eyes weren't nearly as gentle as he walked, slowly, forebodingly, to the table. The small woman continued to smile, as if he were nothing more threatening than a puppy. "This is my escort, my guard, and my husband. I'm sure you understand how protective he is. He'll care for your knife until we finish talking." Perrin's chest heaved in frustration. "There's only one man outside of my family who knows the location of that knife. Where is Shem Zenas?" She shook her head. "There's no Shem Zenas with us." Perrin was losing patience. "Who are you and what do you want?" he bellowed, hoping that perhaps he'd arouse his son, and maybe he'd be wise enough to slip out the window and get some help. But all he heard was snoring from Peto's bedroom. "We want to help you and your family." The woman leaned across the table. "Please sit down, former Colonel Shin. I am what you might consider a garter, and we come with a proposition. Please, let's talk." Mari left after tidying up the house, leaving Jatsi sitting grumpily at the table. She dutifully ate the dinner her mother prepared, while Dex sat down next to her and rubbed her back. "I'm sorry about today. The Creator does things with a purpose and at the right time. The 33rd day of planting season just wasn't the right time." Jatsi didn't respond, but dug into the beans and potatoes with more effort than was necessary. Deck looked around the kitchen, searching for the right words as if his mother-in-law had left a short speech for him somewhere. Finding nothing, he did the best he could on his own. "You know as well as I do that an apple picked before its time is sour," he said. Feeling empowered by the wisdom of the metaphor, he continued, realizing that he had a whole farm he could use as examples. "While peppers are all right to pick when they're still green, wheat that isn't ripe is of no use, and lettuce picked before its prime is bitter." Jatsi gripped the front of his shirt, yanking him closer, and said, "If you keep going, you best not compare me to a cow unless you're ready to be compared to an ox." She released his shirt and went back to attacking her dinner. Dex swallowed, straightened up, and took a wary step back. Jatsi was truly the most thoughtful, intelligent, and beautiful woman he'd ever met. He'd fell in love with her so easily and knew that there was no one else in the world who could compare. But there were moments, such as this one, when he recalled with gut-punching clarity that she carried the blood of several Army officers, the deadliest men in the world. And it wasn't as if any of that was tempered on her mother's side. Dec had seen Mari's kindness turn to rabid ferocity on enough occasions to be a bit leery around her as well. So naturally, it was moments like this that made Dec wonder what kind of children they may have, and if they would terrify him. As he watched Yatesy hack at a boiled potato until it was pulverized, he worried about his own wedding vegetables being abused so rashly, so he tiptoed out of the room. Just a little more mooing, he assured himself as he headed for the safety of the barn. Just a little more mooing. And that's the end of this chapter. Thank you.